I remember not long ago having a conversation on Reddit with someone in PR about the future of PR. And they said that it's not the job of PR people to demonstrate return on investment. Well, my jaw dropped. I couldn't disagree more. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's absolutely essential in this modern world of tech because people want to know that they're getting a return on the money they're paying to your agency or your boss paying to you if you're an in-house comms person. It's such a shame, it feels like, to not be proving this, because I think as anyone in the PR, communication, storytelling, marketing business knows, it is the future of marketing. There's numerous marketing reports that say this, but the challenge has always been, how do you measure it? Which is why I like Liz Riley from NextPR, because they realize this is what people are asking for and really try to demonstrate a clear ROI in their work. So I am absolutely delighted that Liz has joined me today. Thanks so much. And just a quick mention, you are listening to the Public Relations Podcast with me, Richard Midson. I'm a former news editor, broadcaster and PR, and you can find me on LinkedIn by searching for my name, Richard Midson. But let us talk to Liz. Liz, we were just talking very quickly before we came on about how you prove ROI. So what is your sort of general approach to it? I mean, can you give us an example with a campaign that you're currently doing, perhaps?
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me on the air. I'm excited to be here today. I would say data is huge right now for proving ROI behind PR efforts. We are a big proponent at NextPR with Google Analytics. And with Google Analytics, you can see the web traffic from publications that you get your clients published in. So for example, if I got a client into TechCrunch, I can figure out how many users went to the website from the TechCrunch article, how long were they on the website for, what did they do on the website. You can get a lot of great data when you have a backlink in a national or trade publication.
It's one of the challenges, though, isn't it, of PR? And again, we were talking about this, is like the old days, you would get a story in a coffee table magazine and it would appear 2 years later in The Dentist. And someone would read it then and buy something. And it was really hard to prove the value of PR because you can't put a link into that. So are you kind of focusing more on those online places that you can get those links?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody loves a good print piece here and there where you can frame that in your office. But to your point of ROI, if you need to prove to your client that PR efforts are moving the needle and helping drive new users to your website and getting in front of new target audiences, yes, I would say you need to focus on digital, you need to be online, you need to be on social media in order to see movement on your website.
You've got the direct links, haven't you, coming back and sort of buying something. But there's also the aspect of like the power of networking, isn't it?
Definitely. And I love that example. I had a client in the military defense space, and we got them into a military trade publication. There was no backlink or anything, just the name of the company. And within 24 hours, they got a call from the Pentagon on wanting to work together. So that just shows you don't always need the backlink to get the dream customer.
So how do you approach this then? When you get a client coming through and they're saying, look, we believe in storytelling kind of marketing, but we want results. So what's your kind of process then that you use to nail them down? Because what if they've got in their head, oh, we just want to be in, I don't know, we want to be in the New York Times, but we want results. I mean, how are you approaching that to say, look, we can deliver you ROI, but we've got to approach it like X?
Yes, that's a good question. I think my answer is you just need to ask a lot of questions to your client. I like to first start with who is your target audience? Who is your target buyer? And then everything we are doing on the PR front is going to support that goal of reaching a certain target audience. So if you want to be in front of healthcare decision makers, I'm going to recommend we are going to target healthcare trade publications, healthcare podcasts to ensure you're in front of the folks who are going to use your product or company.
And how important are podcasts now? I mean, I had someone on from a podcast booking service just a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the growth of the industry, but it feels like this kind of saturated, I mean, I'm in it, but you're in this saturated market now where there are so many podcasts. So how important actually are they? Or should people still be trying to go for the big press?
I would say they are so important. I don't know one person who's not listening to podcasts on a daily, weekly basis. The way we have consumed information has changed. People like video, people like audio versus reading. And what's great about podcasts is not only are people sharing their opinions, but you can repurpose the content on a podcast for personal social media channels. So I would say they're important now more than ever. I've seen a lot of clients see great ROI from podcasts, whether that be they closed a new client from being on a podcast, they got invited to speak to a conference from a podcast. So there's a lot of people listening that could also drive ROI for you and your business.
It's interesting what you say here, because when I think about ROI, I tend to think in my head about this kind of direct correlation between advertising and a sale. And it sounds like the ROI that you're kind of saying to these people is that, okay, this is a much bigger result that we're getting, not in terms of necessarily, the number of sales, but in terms of the opportunity to influence and connect and all this kind of. So you kind of, when you speak to these people, are you listing these benefits and would say, well, we can connect you, we can do this and this? How do you approach it to prove this ROI? That's the thing that's interesting.
Yeah, and like you said at the beginning of this conversation, it is hard to prove ROI. So when you have a huge win, like a new client, a conference opportunity, a new hire, we're always highlighting that ROI to the client. And you always want to explain the value behind every opportunity you're presenting when it comes to podcasts, whether a competitor had been on the podcast, whether no competitor has been on a podcast, then that means that's the opportunity for you to own the podcast space in your field.
And how do you, I mean, one of the challenges that even, I've had with the podcast is that people will listen to it, say in the car, on the train, and there's not an easy way to kind of click a link often. So it's like giving a URL, which is easy to remember and things like that. So how do you try to make sure that people are demonstrating their interest when they listen to that guest?
Definitely. And I think a lot comes from amplifying the podcast after. Once you're on a podcast, your team should really be highlighting that in their newsletter, on their social media channels, because that's when you can control the link back to your website for them to learn more.
Yeah, I see that with people who are really good at it, is that they will repost the content, add their own little spin on the top of it. And then obviously they can see the results from their own network on that.
Definitely. And LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. Our vice president at NextPR has become a mini PR influencer, if you will, just from sharing the coverage she's been in. She's getting over like 300 engagements. So it just shows people who are following your network will engage and click on the link to learn more.
Yeah. Where do you think things are going with PR next? I love asking people about this because it's, no one quite knows the answer. And it's like everyone's got their own perspective. Obviously, we've got AI. How much an influence is that going to have? What do you think people are going to be asking for next? Well, what are people asking for now compared to 2 years ago?
It's such a good question. On the AI front, I think it's a great tool. It's helped a lot of people do their jobs more efficiently, but something I really believe in, you still need a human helping create that message, because the last thing you want is a crisis where people are calling you out for using AI for all your company messaging. So I can't stress enough, you need a human fact checking, putting a personal spin on it. Don't rely solely on AI, use it to help supplement your work. And then for the future of PR, something that's been cool has just seeing all the new media platforms out there, from TikTok to Substack to all the new podcasts. When I was in the field 10 years ago, it was print and online media, and that was it. So just to see an influx in new platforms that can reach target audiences for our clients, that's been pretty neat to see, and I'm excited to see the ROI that those new platforms can drive.
And the main advantage of these, or to me, is their ability to niche, which of course we didn't used to have. I mean, when I was a broadcaster, we used to reach London as an audience, and that covered just about every demographic on earth. Whereas now, obviously, you can go, well, I want that type of person.
So true. And something that my COO has taught me is you don't want to leave behind loyal audiences on former platforms that you have been on. So a lot of people have moved off Twitter/X, but you just want to be conscious of not leaving people in the dust. So just educating your audiences, we're now on this platform, or we're trying this platform. You don't want to leave people behind. So that's just my one thought.
That's a really interesting one, because there was a company I looked for on X Twitter the other day, and they just stopped posting last year. And they'd been doing posts regularly, and it just vanished. And there wasn't even a sort of post about saying, look, we're now moving to Blue Sky or whatever. They just stopped. And my immediate thought was, oh, did they go out of business?
Yep, that's the simplest thing. You can just put in your bio, we have moved to LinkedIn, whatever the preference, or Blue Sky. Just making sure you're communicating, because you don't want to tick off your target audience and leave them in the dust.
The other challenge I think you have with all these different networks, though, is actually having the time and resources to focus on the right ones, isn't it? Because it's spread out far more. And one of the things you often had in well, you still do, you get people going, well, I want numbers. Because people still tend to see that 1,000 people is better than 10 of the right people.
Right. I was thinking about this earlier today, and something I highly recommend organizations do is send out a quick survey to your customers and figure out where they are getting their news, so you can highly prioritize those platforms that your target audience is reading. And then you don't have to feel like you need to do all the platforms. You can get really good at a few that you know are reaching the people that are going to use your company, buy your product, whatever it is.
So what do you think are going to be the platforms going forward for your particular clients that you're working with?
Ooh, I'm a big proponent on LinkedIn, and that's been a fun one, just to see different spokespeople use that as a platform to share their opinion, and to see reporters even using the LinkedIn posts from spokespeople and pulling from them directly into their articles. So that, I think, is going to continue to have a lot of leeway in 2025.
That's interesting. I dabble with LinkedIn. I try to post more and more stuff on there now. But it's one of the things that I've noticed is that you used to get a lot, and you still do, you get a lot of these kind of very formulaic posts which say, here's one bit of advice, here's how to do it. But the problem is everyone's doing that. So you get to the point where you just don't bother reading any of them anymore. And it's interesting when you see someone do something slightly different. And it's, I keeping my eyes out for this. I'm trying to think of any particular example at the moment, but to stand out now on LinkedIn, I think you have to be more authentic than ever, because there's so much formulaic stuff on there.
Definitely. I read a post the other week, and someone felt like it was an echo chamber where you're seeing a lot of the same content. So you're completely right. You need to have an authentic voice, say something different, say something controversial. I've seen the controversial posts do very well. So you have to say something different for it to make a difference.
And how much do you think people on LinkedIn, from your experience then, are having to reveal more of themselves? Because I think back to the kind of the Gary V thing from a few years ago, where he was documenting his entire life. And you see a few people trying to do that, but it seems to have died out. But where do you think that sweet spot is now for connecting on LinkedIn?
I know, you're right. You don't need to overshare every life update, right? But I feel like if there's trending news in your space and you have an experience related to that news or a hot take regarding that news, that's the time to get personal and share your experience. So that would be my advice. Try to tie it into something relevant that's happening in your industry, and don't just post to post.
Yeah. And finally then, just to wrap up, the future of ROI, what do you want to see? What would be the tools that would help you? What would be the things people need to know?
The future of ROI,
what dream ticket? Maybe not there yet. What would you like to see that would help you do what you do?
The dream ticket, I think, is more visuals and videos. If I could share with my client, here are all the great wins that came from the PR work, I think that's a better way to present versus just traditional decks or emails. That's something that's top of mind for me. And then also working more closely with investors and really understanding what's going to knock their socks off, what can we do, what can we report on, so everyone sees the value of PR. I feel like that's where things get hairy sometimes, when investors don't see the ROI. So we need to do a better job of communicating and showing the ROI behind our work.
Everyone has got this question, isn't it? We've got to somehow find some answers, whether it's AI, whatever the tool is in some way.
So true. It's definitely something that's always going to be a thing in PR. So you have to get creative on how you're reporting.
Yeah, we know it works. It's proving it in numbers.
Exactly. And having consistent success. You can't just have one big ROI win. You need to keep those coming to keep the people happy and impressed.
Liz, absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much. How do people contact you if they'd like to reach out?
Thanks. You can go to my company's website, nextpr.com, and we'd love to chat and learn more about your companies.
Awesome. Thank you very much.